Good Sunday morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee along with my colleague John North. I'm John Becker, and with us this morning is the person who runs the city of Knoxville, Mayor Indya Kincannon, in her second term. Mayor, it's always good to see you, and you just announced your budget a little earlier this month. We're going to dig into those details.
Okay, glad to be here.
And I'm going to introduce our panel as we get started. On the end there is Susan Richardson Williams. She is a Republican, runs her own PR firm.
Happy to be back.
Welcome back.
Great to have you back. And Don, it's great to have you back. Don Bosch
Good to be here.
runs his own law firm and is a Democrat.
The old gang is back.
Yes, let's get started. And Mayor, $461 million, approaching $500 million. You're in the people-pleasing business. At your State of the City address, you talked about the word committed to the basics and also committed to public safety in particular. You see that as job number one. I want to start with this. Your police force needs some help in the terms of people. You have 416 slots allotted for officers. 350 of those slots are full. 70, though, could retire at least at any time this year or at the end of the year. Explain the crisis, the challenge you're facing when it comes to filling those positions.
Well, public safety is job one, and our police department is a big part of keeping this community safe. So we have, like many communities across the country, faced a big challenge in recruiting and retaining police officers. There's just a ton of competition for law enforcement officers here locally, across the state, and across the country. So we believe that this targeted increase to our police officers who are out on the street in the field patrolling our streets will help us retain those officers who could retire and also help us recruit their eventual successors.
Starting pay now up to almost $56,000.
Actually, a little over $56,000, but it's not just for new recruits. We don't want to have that compression. I want to make sure that the officers who have a lot of experience are eager to stay, and that compensation isn't the reason that they would choose to leave. We want to make sure they're paid fairly and close to market or at market as much as possible.
One of the things you point out in your State of the City address is that crime has gone down. And let's dig into that a little bit, because you've taken some steps to try to mitigate that. In particular, crime before it happens. That's something that's tough to measure, but explain how the city is approaching it.
Well, I'm really proud that our homicide rates are down about a third, which was really good news, because that is the number one, the most serious crime is when people are fatally shot or killed. So our police officers have done a good job with that, but we've also started the Office of Community Safety and Empowerment, and thanks to the efforts of that office and our partnerships with community entities like Turn Up Knox, we intervene when we think there's a crime that's about to happen. We have credible messengers, people who may have once been in a life of crime themselves or been friends with the people who are in this world, go to them and give them other paths to avoid violence, to being either victims or perpetrators of violence, and it's working.
So, Mayor, as you know, I have a lot of involvement with the police department and the rank and file officers, and they are very happy, by the way, with this pay increase. I can tell you that. Okay. But they are still, the morale is not very good over there right now, and they're still complaining about everything from work schedules to treatment by command staff to various things. Do you see things as the mayor, the person that hires and fires, for example, the police chief, do you see things that could be done out of your office that might help improve those non-economic morale issues that the department, at least some, seem to be suffering from?
Well, I do think a lot of it can be helped with the pay raise, in part because if we retain and attract new officers, we can eventually get up to a number of officers where we don't have to be on 12-hour shifts. Those 12-hour shifts are rough.
Yeah, very tough, and one
so
of the biggest complaints.
If we have more officers, then we can go back to an 8 or 10. Those shifts can be modified, and that will help morale quite a bit.
And one last thing about that. We've seen, tragically, a spate of shootings involving our police department, city police department, and county, but without fail, with one or two exceptions that I've seen, all these officers are very young. And are we doing anything further to recruit laterals, older officers with experience to come in? You talked about keeping the ones nearing retirement, but I spent a lot of times with those officers involved in those shootings, and I mean, some of these, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, they're kids. They're 21, 22, 23 years old, involved in some of the most harrowing situations you can be involved in as a police officer. Are we doing anything to get more experience in the department?
Well, first of all, those officers from what I gather from the body-worn camera footage that's been released, took heroic actions. And
I
saved
agree
lives.
completely, having
So
watched it as well.
They may be young, but they're doing excellent work to keep
Right.
us safe. So being young doesn't necessarily mean you're not doing a great job. However, we are very open to laterals. Laterals are very savvy, and they're going to be comparing salaries. And so I do think that if this proposed salary increase is approved and adopted, that will help us with our laterals. We're open to laterals. We're open to retention, to keeping our current officers. And also, we have an excellent training academy, and so we use more time to train our officers than is required by state law. And then after the academy, after they become authorized police officers, they have another 6 months in the field training thing where they never are on their own. They're with another officer the whole time. So we have this sort of barbell situation. We have a lot of young officers and a lot of
Right.
really experienced officers, and in the middle we're sort of lean because in years past.
And that's exactly the gap I'm speaking of, is that middle
well,
gap.
we welcome laterals, but so is every state in the country welcoming laterals. I mean, you see advertisements in New York City for police departments in the South, and then all over the world. There are police departments in the United States who are recruiting internationally. So we aren't to that crisis level yet, because the good news is people want to live in Knoxville. Everybody wants to live in Knoxville, including police officers. So we need to make sure they have a place to live. So that's the other big element of my budget is housing. So public safety and housing, that's the main themes of this budget.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. Let's pick up on housing, because that's another thing you spent a lot of time on in your State of the City address. We'll be back on Inside Tennessee this Sunday morning with Mayor Indya Kincannon.